So, my first thought is, why the hell am I still reading these books? So, this could be book 2 or book 3, depending on how you look at it. But, we start the... Oh, wait a minute. Where's my... So, my biggest problem with these books, besides the fact that I'm still reading them, and I have no idea why I'm still reading them. I think I want to know what happens next, and that's my issue. But anyway, this is book 3, Prince of Time, and I've shown these before because I can't pronounce them. Please tell me why fantasy authors give names to their characters that are not pronounceable. Uh, you can read them. One of these days I've got to do the audiobooks to hear how the narrator does it here. And I didn't think about it this morning to write them down. But the one thing about this not being a book and it being on the e-readers, so I took pictures of the characters so I'd know Edward 1, Gilbert de Clare, Humphrey Mortimer, Nicholas de Crew, John Fawkes, Thomas Harley, Peckham. So I did those. But this book is told from about 3 or 4 different points of view. And I do like the fact that each character gets their own chapter. We don't change point of view in the middle of chapter. I have some authors that do that. But every person gets their own POV. So their own chapter. And so it's, I'm going to call him Lou. But it's Leuan, I believe. And David. I'm going to call him David. And they're in this skirmish. And Lou gets injured. So David thinks to himself, let's go to the future. And they jump off this cliff and they end up in Philadelphia. They're in Wales. They are fighting in 1200 Wales. In Wales. In Wales. Jumps off the cliff, thinks about the future, and lands in modern times in Philadelphia. On a campus parking lot of the university. And meets Bronwyn, BRONWN, I think. Sorry, I might misspell that. And hold on a second. She's abandoned me now. Smoke. So Bronwyn is having a hard time. She had this internship, apprenticeship. I forget what it's called, but she was doing archaeology research, and they were covering her tuition fees and stuff like that. And there were 20, I forget how many students, 25 or 50 students, 25, and they had funding for 20 of them, and she was eliminated. She was supposed to be one of the top people or the ones with the most seniority, and she was eliminated. And she was going to have to figure out how to stay there. And she was going to submit to her boss, who's like, well, if you can come work for me as my assistant. And then when she's talking to her friend later, she realizes that what he pays her or gives her out of his stuff is not going to be enough to support her tuition. And she's trying to figure that stuff out. And she leaves the school that night, and she runs into David and Lou. And they've got all their swords and stuff. And he's like, please hide this in your car. Hide this in the car. Then call 911. And so she calls 911. And they think, first they say that Lou's been shot. But, so they want to call the police and stuff like that. And he's like, no. He wasn't shot with a gun. So, they don't specifically tell him he was shot with a bow and arrow. They had taken that out by that point. So he goes to the hospital and he's listed as indigent. They have no ID, that kind of stuff. David manipulates everything. And so Bronwyn ends up taking an interest in them, having a soft heart for them, is curious about their story. And she ends up, he's like, I really need to get to my aunt's house. And she goes, well, why can't we just call her? And he's like, no, my voice has changed. I've gotten a little older since I last saw her. And David's about 16, 17 now. And the fact that because of the time frame he's in, he's treated as a man in the 1200s. He's not treated as a 16-year-old. And, he doesn't have ID or a driver's license for modern times anyway, so he gets away with a lot of stuff. And, Bronwyn takes them for pizza and McDonald's, and they finally go to the house and they talk to the aunt, and the aunt's like, oh my god, you've been missing for so many years and you look like you, but who are these people? They're not your sister and your mother. And David has this revelation that there is a certain timeline, and David, Anna, and his mother were concerned that because in the other book, Meg had warned Lou, the father, that he was going to die on this date, blah, blah, blah. And knowing that information, knowing when, where, and how he was going to die, the idiot went there anyway. But David and Anna interrupted the whole thing and saved the father's life, so the father lived past that. So the history was Edward had taken over the whole Wales, and Wales became part of England, and because of this guy died. Now David and Anna have changed history, and David was wondering when he gets to the future what's going to happen as a result of that change. You know, the space-time continuum, the flux capacitor, all those stuff that Doc Brown talks about. So David has this he's been researching. He researches quite a bit. When he's at his aunt's house, he gets on her computer and does massive amounts of research. And he says, so in this world, because we're not only in a different time, but a different world, one that exists simultaneously with our own. This puzzled me when Anna and I first came to Wales. I was worried by the changing the history of Wales. I could change the future so dramatically. Perhaps I myself would no longer exist. But once we arrived back here, however, and I'd spoken with Bronwyn about this matter, I realized that we didn't change this world. We left it and went to another whose future we will determine. These people here aren't part of our future. I couldn't look at them nor at the Marvel books and incredible machines. So in this world, you were never the Prince of Wales. For the people of this world, the English murdered your father, and then what? King Edward subjugated Wales entirely. My half-sister Gwen was kidnapped and spent her life in an English convent. Uncle David's sons were imprisoned in wooden cages at Bristol for their entire lives. And Uncle David himself was hanged, drawn, and quartered, then dragged through the streets of Shrewsbury. Edward displayed both his and my father's heads on poles in London. That's why Tudor made his peace with England. There no longer was a Wales to serve. So when does this happen? 1283. Wales was no more. Since it's only the last 20 years that Wales began to separate itself from England once again, they do vote for Parliament now, but the real power is still in England. It sure went through my body. How can this be? Oh, wait a minute. I'm reading the same page over again. No, I'm not. Because we're not only in a different time, but a different... Oh, I did read that. Here it is. So, in this world, you were never the Prince of Wales. For this world, English murdered your father. Okay. And when does this happen? 1283. Wales was no more. I stared down at the picture of George Washington. The wonders of this world had lost their beauty. We need to find a way home, my prince, right now. So, and then the chapters change. So, they do some more research and they go to the aunt's house and they set up a thing to go back to 1283 or 4, which it is now, and do all that stuff. But they do one thing that I wanted the other peeps to do. You have to read Brooke Lucy. I think it's the Brooke Lucy books, where she goes back and forth often. I like that situation. So David and Bronwyn decide she's gonna marry Lou and go back with them because her life here really doesn't. Her parents don't care about her. They never really wanted her. Half the time they forgot her and left her places. So she's decided she's gonna go back with them, and David thinks he knows if they do something dramatic and dangerous, and they'll go back in time. And that's another big issue with this. They were in Wales. They were in Wales in 1284, and they do this fall off the cliff thing, and they end up in Philadelphia on another continent, all the way across the world. And then they're gonna do this dangerous thing in Philadelphia and end up back in Wales in 1284, 5, whatever. But David and them do something that I wanted. If I was gonna do this, which I would never do it, but if I was gonna do it, first of all, I want a way back. Oh, and now she's got to be massively cute. She's playing with a ball. Go figure. So they go to the store and they load up on Tylenol and Motrin and antibiotics and alcohol and what's that stuff? Oh, I can't even think about it. All medical supplies. He even grabs I don't know if he grabs any seed packets, but he needs to grab seed packets so he can start growing his corn and potatoes and beans and stuff like that they didn't have for another couple hundred years. And he makes a bunch of sandwiches and grabs some mayonnaise jar and a ketchup jar and a mustard jar, and he grabs all this stuff and he takes it back with them. But then when they get back, they end up in a little issue problem, and it takes quite a few chapters, really, for them. Part of the book is they land in English territory, so they've got to make their way back to Wales, and they get captured a couple of times, they get betrayed a couple times, they finally make it back to where the father is. The father has this really bad infection, and when Lou was in the hospital, they gave him antibiotics. They brought the antibiotics with them, gave them to the father recovers. The mother was at another castle, and the mother and Anna finally catch up with them towards the end of the book, and they're eating donuts that they brought. I don't know if it's mentioned in the bringing, but they're sitting in the castle kitchen eating donuts and drinking coffee that they brought with them. And it's just, and the book just ends. They end up conquering Edward and stuff, and they have changed history completely, and they need to figure out what they're going to do next, because they don't know. Who knows what's going to happen in the next book? If they're going to go back and forth again, what's going to happen? Are you coming here? Come here. Come here. Come here. Should we get your Bali and go play? Should we get your Bali? Now, let's see if I can do this. I am so not good at this. I have such a hard time with this thing. I really, really do. But anyways, let's see if I can do this. So, let's see. I'd rather be able to open the book to the pages. it was my father and I sat together on our horses, our lines of men stretching 200 yards in either direction along the top of the great dike. Below us in a field not far from Bronwyn Lewin and I appeared 2 months before, lay the English camp. We couldn't have repeat of what happened in Lancaster. This time the English had come to us. It was a clear day for October with only a threat of rain in the air. Hopefully we'd be long gone before the skies opened. But it didn't matter if they did. We'd won. Wales had won, and the world was never going to be the same. I see the Archbishop, my father said. We walked the horses forward, followed by a company of 100 knights. And they're gonna see what goes on with that. And the next book, The Crossroads in Time. 3 years have passed since the events chronicled in Prince of Time. Anna has made a place for herself in the 13th century Wales as a wife, mother, and healer. David has taken more of the kingdom's rule on his shoulders, even as the relationship with Lil has caused friction with his father, King Llewellyn. The king wants his son to seek a political marriage that will benefit his country and possibly the crown of England on David's head. England and Wales have shared a border and uneasy peace for 3 young years, but that's about to change. Well, should we read the next book? Should we go to something different? I've got a to-be read pile over there. I should not be reading the Kindle. Oh, have you heard the latest news about the Kindle? I got this email the other day. For some of you, it may be quite a few months old by now. Old news. But I was concerned until it occurred to me that they're talking about Kindles that are over 20 years old, and mine's only 10 years old. I'm pretty sure I got this 2016, 17, actually, maybe a little later than that because the first Kindle I had died. So, but I do have a Nook from Barnes & Noble that's like this big, and I haven't used it in well over 20 years. I never could figure out how to change. I couldn't never figure out how to do anything. So anyways, hey, if you could check out Star Trek Next Generation recaps on Fridays and Next Generation recaps on Fridays and JD Rob Saturdays and Unboxing Sundays, which is about to change a little. And Flashback Monday and my daily book reviews. And every night at 7:45 on the D. Louise Book Series channel, we're talking Diana Gabaldon's Echo in the Bone, written in my own heart's blood, and Go Tell the Bees That I'm Gone. And if the new book comes out by the time I finish Go Tell the Bees, we will start the new book. If it has not come out by that juncture, we will start Outlander. I started with Echo in the Bone. I started in the middle of Echo in the Bone because that's where season 7 ended and I had finished binging. So we'll go back. Have a good one.